Hello, I'm Jose Jimenez, and today I will be presenting chapters 33 and 34 of the Principles of Economics book. First, let's start with chapter 33. We will talking about aggregated demand and aggregated supply. In order to understand and have a clear idea of how aggregate demand and how supply work, we have to clear out two main things about how GDP behaves in the long and the short run. First, we have that in the long run, usually GDP increases by 3% or tend to increase. At least in the United States economy, GDP has in the last 5 decades increased 3% annually. On the other hand, we have in the short run, GDP can fluctuate depending on the economy's trends, like in the latest months, weeks, etc. Having clear how GDP behaves in the long and short run, we can see these two terms. There are recession and depression. First, when recession is like when the economic activity falls in a very meaningful way, meaning that the economy is not experiencing any growth and therefore is contracted. And in addition to this, there is no the unemployment start to rises. We can call this a recession. At the beginning of every recession, unemployment rises, reaching its peak at the end of this. We also have depression, even though depressions are is very unlikely to happen. Depressions are like recessions that get worse and endure more time. Having all this cleared out, we can see the curves. First, we have the aggregated demand curves. These curves show us the total of goods and services that are demanded in the economy at different price levels. As we can see in this graph, the vertical axis represents the price level and the horizontal one represents the quantity of goods and services. The aggregated demand is downward sloping due to the relationship with the price levels and the quantity demanded. And when the price levels increases, as we can see here, the quantity demanded reduces, and vice versa. When the price level reduces, the quantity demanded increases. There are three main things that can change the aggregated demand curves. Downward. First, we have the world effect. That in this we assume that the government will maintain a constant money supply. We also can see the interest rate effects, and in this one we assume that that when prices rise, that it forces households to use more money. And then we have the exchange rate, in which we assume that bigger the country's exchange, like its exports and imports, it will lead to a decline in the slope. Like it will make sloping the aggregated demand curve down. We see that an increase in prices will reduce the quantity of goods and services. Any aspect that changes net export, investment, goods and services, and capital will shift the aggregated demand curves. Now we can have Then we have the aggregated supply curves. The aggregated supply curve shows the quantity of goods that can be produced at any price level. There are two ways in which the aggregated supply curve can be presented. As we can see also in the graph, we have the upward sloping that is in the short run. This slope goes, as seen say, upward, and we have the vertical in the long run. We have like to open a parenthesis in here to talk about the natural rate. Natural rate is like when the economy is at its base, when the economy is at its perfect point, in this unemployment is at its lowest or even zero. This is called, when this happens in the economy, this is called the natural rate. And this also can be called potential output. Let's see for the long run aggregate supply. As I mentioned, long run aggregate supply is very cold. It's very cold. It's very cold due to the fact that the long-term outputs are independent of the price levels. And what can shift this long run aggregate supply? Well, basically, as we saw here, only things that directly affect the natural rate can affect the long run supply. Things such as unemployment, lack of technology, lack of capital can affect the long run aggregate supply. Then we have the short run aggregate supply. Contrary to the long run, short run is upward slope and it tends to increase like 1 to 2 years in a 1 to 2 year period. It will increase prices as well as the quantity of goods and services supply. And this can be changed by any changes in the pricing of inputs can modify the short-long aggressive supply curve. Things such as changes in the capital stock of natural resources, and even the level of technology that a country can have can influence in the variation of the short-long run aggregate supply. Now let's see chapter 34, titled Influence of Monetary and Fiscal Policy on Aggregated Demand. First, let's see the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy. Well, monetary policies are policies taken by country central banks. These are actions that affect the money supply and credit in the economy. These policies are mainly and only can be taken by the central banks. In the case of the United States, the Fed. On the other hand, we have the fiscal policies. Those are regulations that involve taxation and government expenditure, and they can only be taken by the government itself. First, the executive branch proposes it to the legislative branch, and the legislative branch approves it or send it back to the executive in order to improve some parts. Those, like I mentioned, these are mainly to say how much taxes the government is going to code, how much taxes are going to be paid by the people, and also to order and say how they are going to spend those taxes that they collect. We can see, as we saw before, we are going to recap the changes in the aggregate demand. First, we have the wealth effect, in which we assume that the government would maintain a constant money supply. We have the interest rate. We assume that when prices rise, it forces households to use more money. Then we have finally the exchange rate effect. That we assume that the bigger the country's exchange will lead a decline in the net export, sloping the aggregate demand down. Of these three, the least important is the wealth effect because money holdings are a smart part of the wealth that households has. Um, there is in the US the case is there is a case in which the exchange rate effects do not have that importance due to the import and export only represent a small fraction of the US economy, Therefore, that exchange rate will have the significant impact that is willing to have in the other's economy. Now we have these two concepts that are important in order to understand the aggregate demand. We have the money supply. Money supply is the total amount of cash and other liquid assets the country has at the time of counting them. The central banks and the treasury are the responsible of supplying with money the country. They're responsible of making paper money and coins, while money demand is the quantity of money that people want to have. Interest rates can influence and increase money demand. Now we're going to see how inflation is determined. Basically, inflation is determined of how how big are interest rates and how big is the demand and how big is the money supply. The bigger the interest rate, as we're going to see falling, the the bigger going to be the money demanded, and therefore the bigger the money demanded, the bigger the money is. This has to be supplied. We can see here. When interest rate increases, money supply is reduced, as well as the quantity of goods and services demanded. And the money demanded increases because people want more money, therefore central banks have to supply more money. They have to supply the needs of the people to maintain the economy afloat. As we can see, sorry, in this chart, we can see the interest rate at first was this at one, and if you can see the point, 1 month demanded was lower, but then interest rate increases, therefore money demanded increase, and the money supply also require an increase. In, in the other chart, we can see that first the aggregated demand was bigger in the in the demanded part, and then the aggregate demand lowers due to the decrease of the economy. We have liquidity traps. What are liquidity traps? Liquidity traps consist of interest rate reaching a very low level, even 0%. When this happens, monetary policies become ineffective. This is very rare to see when, as I mentioned, this happens. All the monetary policies that wants to be implemented does not apply. We have the multiplier effect. The multiplier effect is the ratio of the income shift to the long-term shift in the flow of spending that brought about the shift in the first place. The term multiplier effect describes the rise in total income as that results from additional funding. When the government adds something, the multiplier effect multiplies that, giving another slope in the curve. We can see here the equation for the multiplier first. That is y equals 1 over 1 minus the the marginal propensity to consume. The marginal propensity to consume is a fraction of the total expenditure over what is produced in the government. Like is, let's say, a division, but it's not a division. Yeah, about what is what is consumed over what is produced. This causes the multiplier effect. And finally, we have the active stabilization policy. A stabilization policy tries like to stop the movement in the chart in the GDP mainly, which is measure of the economy's total output. It also tries to stop the jumps in the inflation or deflation. Like its main goal is to, like its namesake, to stabilize economy, to stabilize the productions of the countries. And when these things are stable, there are usually enough jobs for people. So these are the references I use. I use in order to know the percentage of the U.S. economy. I use the U.S. Bureau Economy Analysis. I also use the book, The Modeling Practice of Economics 7 edition book. Lastly, in order to know a few concepts, I use the Trading Economics is a page of trading economics. So thank you.